All right. I'm looking for, I'm looking for the agenda here.
Well, we'll pull up the PowerPoint information items.
Thank you.
Or action items first, and that way you can see as we go along here what's going on.
Great.
Okay. Next slide. There you are.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 4th meeting?
This is Brad. I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Brad. Second?
Second,
This is
Ryan
Amber.
Nelson.
I'll second. Oh,
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item. All right.
Okay.
Amendment to, all right, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Our current driver contractor, Transdev, the contract we have with the city of Fargo and then one with the city of Moorhead, they both expire December 31, 2023. So we're just completing negotiations with them, and we just finished last week. And what we look at and what's in our agreement and our thought process is looking at the consumer price index, and when we started negotiations back in April, it was 4.9%. That would be, an increase that would not go beyond that. However, our terms and our agreements allow for negotiation above the CPI if there are circumstances that warrant those discussions and decisions. So we're recommending the option to extend into and through 2024, and that's calendar year 2024. We can do that with our existing agreement. We have a 2-year contract when we first started, and then 3 individual 1-year options. So this would be one of those options. One of the challenges we face currently is there is a driver shortage, and right now we're hovering right around 10 drivers that we're short that would be a full regiment of drivers to do literally every service that we have out there. So we asked Transdev to help us with some statistics to convey to you on what our turnover rate is. And when they bring in someone and they hire them and they're in the process of training them, for whatever reason, the drivers will either decide to leave, or it's a situation where they're not going to work out for us. So there's a 60% turnover just with people that come in, interview, get hired, go into training, and for whatever reason don't complete the training. For drivers that we have in service that have made it through the training and have achieved getting their CDL and are ready to be put into service and are out there, there's a 53% turnover rate for those drivers. Many times they will get out on the street, and there's a lot going on when you're driving one of those vehicles. With traffic, you work with the passengers, you have a lot of things coming at you, and it's just not for some people. That's still a very high turnover rate. CDL drivers, which drivers that work for us, they drive the fixed route buses, the large ones, are required to have a CDL. That market here in our FM metro area is very, very limited. It never used to be this challenging for us to bring CDL drivers on board. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of other, trucking. It just school bus. We've had actually the school district in West Fargo contact us to see if we can help them with CDL drivers, which has not, unfortunately, been something we can do. So there is quite a bit of competition out there. So then it was many discussions on what can we do to recruit and retain some of these drivers. What are some of these reasons that people are either not wanting to drive the bus or get into trainings and say, this is not for me? What are we facing? So we have looked at increasing the wages to be a preferred employer here, and offering a pay differential for nights and weekends. That would be a $2 an hour differential for those shifts. And in this process, we'd like to hire a full-time classroom trainer, we have a full-time classroom trainer, and we did do surveys of existing drivers to determine what some of these retainage strategies that they're boots on the ground. They're out there every day. They know what it is that some of these folks are facing that just is driving them away from the position. We did get some really interesting input from that survey. We're not finished assessing everything, but it's about having decent driving shifts, how many hours. The CDL rules are that the drivers can be out there for X number of hours. That recently, a couple years ago, changed where those hours can be extended under certain circumstances. So it's, do you want to work a full shift? Do you want to work, part-time? You're going to be able to fill in for us. The nights, the weekends, we start at 6:15 in the morning, 7:15 on Saturdays, and we run up into 10:15, 9:15 is what we're looking at going forward to be able to accommodate a lot of the driver shortages. So we really, and Cole is going to go over the survey results a little later here during the discussion, so I'm not going to go into a lot of depth, but one of the main things that came out is we definitely have no one, or I think it's 4 people that were interested in, hey, I'll do a split shift for you. So we're digging deep and trying to help this situation as best we can. Sorry, I went rambling on. Lori, did I miss anything?
No, you're fine. Next slide has a little more information.
Why don't you take that one, Lori?
Yeah, I will, yeah. So the negotiated rates that we have with TransDev for our fixed route system, our current rate per revenue hour, that's the time when the buses are on the street in service, is $38.70 an hour. The proposed rate that we negotiated is $43.10 an hour, which is an increase of $4.40 or 11%. This reflects a big change in our annual training wages because of our big turnover. These are the drivers who never reach revenue service, but we're paying them during training, and that is a huge chunk of money that brings up that percent, just to reflect what's really occurring. Also increasing the starting pay scale by 5%. For the starting wages, it's $21.90 an hour now. We've been moving to 23 with that $2 differential for night and weekend shifts. And then we would continue our bonuses for safety and incentives, and continue our option for sign-on bonuses should we need to kick that option in order to get more people in the door. It seems like we're getting more people in the door right now for wanting the jobs. It's just, making it through and becoming in revenue service. That's the challenge. Our budget for 2024 does assume that we will return to full service. Currently we have reduced service frequency on several of our routes. Our full service is to 11:15 at night. And so, we would like to get drivers on board to be able to go back to our full service. And then this budget also assumes that we will reduce our turnover once we have established all of these changes and are fully staffed. Next slide. paratransit. So our paratransit service, which is our door-to-door service for people with disabilities that are ADA eligible, has a current rate per revenue hour of $37.34. That would be increased to $41.15, an increase of $3.81 or 10%. This reflects $49,000 in annual training costs for drivers who would never reach revenue service. About the paratransit service, they are not required to have a CDL to drive the paratransit service, so there is less training involved. But then there is also some specialized training for dealing with people with disability as well. This does increase the pay scale, same as the fixed route, where we put that 5% raised in on the pay scale, and its starting wages again would be raised to $23 with that $2 differential. We do have 11 steps in the pay scale, and the average annual increase between those 11 steps is 4.7%, which is in the range of our 4.9% CPI. We have, again, continued bonuses and incentives and hoping to retain people by giving them bonuses for doing their jobs well. It reflects an increase in revenue hours because paratransit service has been growing, and so we do have more revenue hours that the costs are being spread over. And then the cost for paratransit is shared between Fargo and Moorhead based on our ridership, and so the budget reflects 19% for Moorhead and Dilworth and 81% for Fargo and West Fargo. And then we do have Sunday service on paratransit, which is one of our weekend services, and we have fewer vehicles out there now because of driver shortages. We'd like to be able to implement our 3 vehicles again, and hoping that pay differential will make a difference for that. And next slide. Management fees. So we have a 9-person team of the management team from TransDev that oversees the drivers. We have a general manager, an operations manager, a safety manager, 4 road supervisors, a classroom trainer, and an accounting clerk. The increase in this management fee includes that full-time classroom trainer. Previously, they brought in senior drivers as they were available, but the training is just so ongoing that they made it permanent to have a full-time classroom trainer in this negotiation. And again, then the management fee has a cost of living increase of 5.6%. It includes technology. We have the contractor buy technology that helps the transit system, our drive-can system on the board, the buses. It tells them when drivers need more training, if they're hitting their brakes too hard or turning corners, knocking into things. I mean, it just has a whole range of tells them what drivers are doing what so they can increase their training and improve that. And then GeoTab tells about the vehicle's performance. And then we asked in this that they add a scheduling software for the driver bid pack. So currently the team comes up with all these runs or picks, and the drivers are unionized. They pick based on seniority what shift they want. So they start at the most senior person picking the shift they want. Because we have this survey done of the drivers, as to their preferences. We asked TransDev if they would purchase some scheduling software to help in creating those driver bid packs. And TransDev does have a scheduling software, so the corporate headquarters is helping the local team put in all of those preferences for not having split shifts and having 3 days off in a row if they're going to be working a Saturday or working an evening shift, or all of those different things that we ask the drivers. So that technology is going to be available for this contract. There was no change in the overhead or profit that is paid to TransDev. They're still at 8% of the contract total. And then cost allocation of the management fees between Fargo and Moorhead is based on revenue hours. And there was a slight increase in revenue hours in paratransit, so that percentage is a little bit higher than it was in this year, very slightly over. So the cost increased by city contract. Option year 1 shown on this slide is 2023's contract. Option year 2 is the one we've been negotiating for 2024. And this is Fargo's portion of that. And it shows the increase of 11%. For fixed route, it shows paratransit up 25%, but the total up 14%. So that is reflected there, what the cost would actually be. So this is an increase to Fargo of over $600,000, nearly $700,000 a year, to get our service fully, and this is full service, our full service back, and hire enough staff to completely run that. Next slide. This is Moorhead's part of that contract, and so that shows a nearly $250,000 increase in the cost per year, and the grand total for Fargo and Moorhead altogether is a 14% increase at $948,643. So it's an increase, quite a bit to get the drivers a wage that gets us to be the employer of choice, and to fill those evening weekend shifts, increase training and reflect our huge turnover in this market. Which and we do have on the call today, we have Julie Sellner, which is the regional person for TransDev, and then our local general manager, Matt Pinotti, is also on this call. They are here to answer any of your questions you have for them on this negotiation that we've been going through. So I'm going to go to the next slide, but then I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk if they want, and for you to ask them questions as well. So the recommended action for the group today is to recommend approval of the price proposal for option year 24 for our contract amendment number 2 as presented. So then I'd like to open that up to any questions you have for us or for TransDev and discussion.
So this is Denise. I'll start if I may. And I'm new to this committee and actually the commission now for a year. But my question is, has there been communication with our finance director in Fargo or any staff here about this impact to the 2024 budget? We've already approved our budget for 2024, and I'm sure you know that, first of all, our staffing COLA was only 2% because of constraints. This is a significant impact to our budget for 2024 that hasn't been, I'm sure, anticipated at this point. So I don't know if that's a dumb question. Go ahead.
No dumb questions, Commissioner. This, we did involve the Fargo finance director,
Okay.
and the accounting manager that works with us pretty much daily. And
Sure.
Also, of course, the Moorhead finance manager and finance director over there. This is included in the budget. This is
Okay.
not, I anticipated these based on discussions we started having back in April with TransDev, and just knowing how the market is for drivers and how we are trying to make, like Lori said, our location a choice employer. So yes, this has all been figured in. It's been in the budget. It is in the budget. It's what you guys approved. So
Great. Thank you.
Not asking for, no problem.
Are there any other questions of anyone else?
This is Ryan over in Moorhead, and thanks, Julie. I just want to verify you're kind of answering that for Fargo. I didn't see the agenda prior to the meeting, so I didn't on there. So just confirming, you had also talked to our finance director, and maybe Lori, you could speak to that too, that I don't remember without looking back where the numbers were, because we're coming to an end on our budgeting cycle, where we're at with the numbers, where we had budgeted off the top of my head. So I'm sure Sebastian has the question. I just want to confirm before we add just $250,000.
Yeah, yes.
No
So I
surprises.
hadn't, same with Julie, back in April when we started this process, we got an early proposal from TransDev, and I budgeted an increase of 11%. with the pay differential, there is a little bit of an increase above what we budgeted. And so I will be bringing forward with this contract amendment a budget adjustment to go with that. But we have CARES Act money to pay for that increase, and feel comfortable that we have sufficient money available in our federal grant funds to pay for that increase without any additional funds coming from the general fund. Currently, our CARES Act money is being used to pay for the local share of our grants, matching our grants. And so we have not had any general fund dollars in transit for several years with the COVID funds and CARES Act and ARPA funds that were provided to us. So we will not be adding any other burden to the general fund, but there will be a slight change for.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Lori. And I know that'll run out at some point, but I just wanted to verify. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ryan, I will make sure that you're added to our mail list to receive the agenda in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd been getting them before. I just didn't get them before this meeting, so I don't know what happened there.
Okay. I switched the email, so it may have came from my email. So double check your junk folder to make sure it didn't go there since it's a new email address. But I will double check that you're on our mail list.
Thank you.
Chelsea,
Great.
did you say there was someone anonymous on the call that you wanted to know for the
Yes.
minutes?
Please.
Anybody who's anonymous on the call want to tell us who they are? Huh? Apparently they're going to stay anonymous.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, this is Brad in West Fargo. Just wondering if Julie, if you contacted our finance director too before we approved our budget last month for this increase?
We have not had discussions with the West Fargo finance director. We always have in the past, and I know you have a new one. So no, I have not, but I certainly can and certainly will.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right, any other questions? So is there a motion you're asking us to approve? Can you put that back up?
Brian has to put that back up with the action on the PowerPoint.
Please, thank you. All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve as presented? There we go. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended
you.
action as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Who
Brad,
motioned,
second.
sorry?
Who-
Who,
So
sorry,
we
who
have-
motioned and who approved? Or seconded?
Who made the
Brad did.
motion? Thank you. And do you have the first and second?
I need the second.
Who was? I'm sorry, who was the second?
seconded. Ryan,
Who- okay.
Ryan, Ryan made the motion.
Thank you. So it's Brian and Brad. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next.
slide.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
Jordan's going to speak on this issue. Unless you want me to, Jordan.
It doesn't matter. I can do it. All right. So
All right,
our,
well-
Fare system uses a Connect card, a smart card that they tap on the fare box. It's an account-based system, so they have a balance on their account, and every time they tap it, it takes off the fare. So initially, we provide them with one of the smart cards free of charge. If they're opening an account or whatnot, they get their first card free. Currently, we charge a $5 replacement fee if they lose their original card or it's stolen or what have you. Because of COVID-19, there's been everyone heard about the chip shortage. So there's been a large shortage of these cards. We were notified that GenFare, the supplier that we get the cards from, had purchased 1 million plus cards in anticipation of there being a shortage. So like last time we ordered our smart cards, it was a 12-week lead time, so they're about 3 months out. We have seen a huge increase in lost or stolen cards, and people having to get replacements, which causes our inventory to be depleted faster. And then with the struggle of trying to get them, we had run out for about 2 weeks before we got our new shipment in. So we are definitely encourage people to use mobile. There is no physical card involved in mobile. It's all on your phone. They can access it from any phone as long as they have your email. And it works really well. However, we still see a large percentage of our riders that like to use the physical card. So for all the reasons stated, we would like to increase the replacement card fee from $5 to $10 to try to encourage people to maybe take a little bit better care of their card and keep track of it so that we're not having to replace them so often. We've also talked about providing them like a card holder with a lanyard or something that maybe, if it's not just a card, if it's actually in something, it might allow them to, hold on to it a little better, keep track a little better. So any questions on that or any concerns from the board on that, on increasing that replacement card fee?
Any questions? Seems pretty straightforward. Hearing no questions, do we have a motion for the recommended action to increase from $5 to $10 effective January 1st, 2024?
So moved.
Who's the first? If you just state your name when you make the motion, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sebastian, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Do I have a second?
Ryan Nelson on second.
Thanks, Brian. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go into our informational items.
Great. Thank you.
Transit reorganization study update. Julie, you want to do this one, or you want me to do this one?
Yeah, I can jump in, and anybody else that wants to, feel free. We are about, I would say, 2/3 the way through a study where we have KLJ on contract with us, and they're the consultants working on the study. So what the whole premise behind it is, when October 1 of 2023 hit, we moved from a small urban to a large urban as when we surpassed the 200,000 population, and in this area, in this metro area. So you've probably heard us talk over the years about that, but now it's here, and we want to make sure that we're addressing all the needs, including within our organization. So one of the first steps is the actual federal funding for some of the programs will now come directly to us rather than go through the state of Minnesota or the state of North Dakota. And we Fargo will be what we've called the designated recipient of the 5307 funds, which are operating. They can also be used for capital. So the purpose is to have one designated recipient in the area, and then we would develop, and that's part of our study, some cost sharing agreements and revenue sharing agreements that include that grant coming in and how we allocate that out to the other cities that are involved. So it's been quite a process, and like I said, the first step was to get the governor of Minnesota and the governor of North Dakota to agree and provide input that Fargo would be the designated recipient. We have received the Governor Walz letter back supporting that. We're just waiting for Governor Burgum to bring it back to us. So the working on coordinating between the two cities, it's on the surface, you would think, okay, that's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. There's a lot of details, and we are working through them. We have our finance team involved. We have our core staff involved, and we're going through literally every line item and every revenue source, everything that comes through. And what the goal is to get, as a large urban, we want to be able to meet the new requirements that come with that from federal transit. Reporting requirements are more, our funding that we will be receiving from them will be based on a little bit different criteria as opposed to the past. When we were a small urban, it was a designated amount for the area, and Fargo received their own grant, Moorhead received their own grant, and never the two met in the past. So we would like to hopefully going forward work into that becoming one grant recipient for this area. So what we're looking at is maybe merging some of the transit staff into one organization. So that would include, very likely it would be, Moorhead has 3 full-time employees and then a portion of a finance manager. So we're looking at how that would work, bringing them over, contracting with them. It's interesting how many different scenarios are possible. And of course, it would include what those employees view as most beneficial to them. And one of the biggest things we'd like to do is review and incorporate sharing of vehicles. We have always wanted to do that. Things have prevented us from doing that, but we think we have come to a good point where we can start doing that not too far down the road within the next, in my world, that's in the next couple of years. And so it wouldn't be Moorhead vehicles only serve Moorhead and Dilworth, Fargo vehicles only serve Fargo and West Fargo. It would be no consideration of that. Vehicles would go wherever they need to go, whatever works best. So, and that would lead to, in my mind, that would lead to some good route considerations where we're not worried about stopping at the border and not serving across the river. So we have, Lori, I'm going to have you take the governance model piece, if you wouldn't mind, for the working committee.
Sure. So KLJ, we are considering a new governance model. So right now, as you know, you're the MAC coordinating board, and you make recommendations back to the Fargo commissioners and the Moorhead council members, and so they're looking at, well, how could this be redone to be more efficient and have less approvals, multiple approvals needed to get things accomplished under the new reorganization. So KLJ put together 2 options, and of course there could be more options, but they wanted to start the conversation with two options. Option one and option two. Option one is very similar to what we have now. We have a technical advisory committee, and then they recommend to the MAT board, and then the MAT board recommends to the elected officials, or a hybrid committee where the technical committee and the elected officials and such are all together on one committee working through the issues, maybe more in the weeds, more understanding of how the system works, so that we could eliminate a layer of governance structure. So the next slide, please. This explains it better. So this is option one. So the Transit Technical Advisory Committee, which is on the right, would be a monthly meeting, and it would include your finance directors and administrators, along with the transit directors of both cities, and then an administrator from Dilworth and West Fargo, and then the MetroCog as our MPO, and then NDSU as the large college that pays for a lot of service in the area. That would be the group that meets monthly to have discussions on things like contract negotiations and budgets, and what do we want to purchase as capital improvements, and here we're getting this new allocation of federal money in, how do we want to spend this money? Then it would go to the MAT coordinating board. They're looking at then reducing the membership on the MAT coordinating board to basically be someone from each elected board of the four major jurisdictions, and then a chair that would be someone that was jointly appointed, that they would recommend to the council and commission what we were going to be doing with this. The coordinating board would meet only quarterly because the technical advisory committee is meeting monthly, so that would reduce the number of meetings that the board would go through, but when it gets to them, it would be already, all those questions you have on, hey, was this talked to with the finance directors? It would be, so that right now Fargo has to go to the finance committee. Part of the idea is, do we have to go to the finance committee before we go to the technical advisory committee, before we go to the MAT board, before we go to the elected officials? We're trying to reduce something here in all of the work to get the work done and the goals met. And then I'll go to option two and explain that a little bit, and then we can come back and have discussion on that. So next slide. Okay, the hybrid. Okay, so this would be a combination of the MAT Coordinating Board and the Transit Technical Advisory Committee. And so all of the discussions can be had in one place, and all the details worked out in one place instead of another layer going from the technical committee to the MAT board. So it would be one less layer. It would go from here right to the elected officials, and we would have worked through with the finance staff as they are members of this group. We would work with them and to recommendations that would include budgets and capital improvement plans and things like that. On our staff side, we did go over these two and do some brainstorming. And on the staff side, we highly recommended the hybrid in hopes that it would just reduce the levels of governance, but also get more knowledge and education into the group making the decisions about how things work. Ideally, we'd like to hold public hearings at this level. We don't know if those powers yet, we'd have to go through the legal, whether those powers will be allowed to be given to the board. But if we could reduce some of our, like when we're having a route change, if we could have the public hearing at this level and then recommend to the elected officials, or a fare change, it might, again, remove another layer of meetings to get something approved. We just have to make sure that legal powers are allowable under this kind of arrangement until we have a transit authority where we know the powers can be given to that authority. It is sort of an in-between way of operating in our reorganization study. Julie, you want to add anything to that before we open up to questions?
No, I think you got it. Thank you.
Great. So any questions, or can we have discussion on your preferences for option 1 or option 2, the hybrid? I'll open it up. Well, hearing none, I'll add, I certainly prefer the hybrid option 2 if I have a vote in this. Certainly less meetings is always better. So any other comments from anyone else?
I'm assuming
Do
the
you have, like,
hybrid
a
option would
timeline?
be monthly meetings.
Go ahead, Sebastian. I think I talked over you. Go ahead.
That's fine. I'm assuming the hybrid method would be monthly meetings like current. And when you like kind of and piggyback off of Ryan, what's your timeline on it? I guess I'm going to steal your question, Ryan.
Yes, we were thinking it would be monthly.
Great, thank you. And timeline?
The study's supposed to be done by the end of this year. So I don't know what the study will recommend as far as governance structure, if it's something that we would implement in 2024 or in 2025. A lot of the changes that are being recommended probably won't occur until 2025 as we work through the master agreements and things like that. But I mean, ideally, the earlier the better.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
Next slide.
All right, another little quick update on vehicle purchases. For our fixed route buses, our large buses, Fargo currently has 9 new buses on order. Looking at a February and March delivery. They'll deliver for a couple of weeks, beginning in February, so we'll get them throughout February and March. Moorhead has 1 new bus on order from New Flyer, and that's looking like a February delivery for that. And then we have 4 fixed route buses to replace that are funded in 2024. So we're going to get that order going also. So looking to get those vehicles probably towards the end of 2024, if not again February, March of 2025. So and that'll bring us up to pretty good levels as far as being where we need to be for replacement vehicles, which is a good thing. Because of COVID, it set us back a couple of years, and we're really seeing the impacts of having vehicles past their useful life in our fleet, as far as our shop budget goes, and just keeping those older vehicles on the road and doing repairs that normally we wouldn't do because the vehicles would be replaced by now. So, and that's really, really true in the paratransit buses. As you see there, we got 4 brand new Elkhart Cutaway buses received for Fargo. Those 4 are now on the road. So we've retired 4 old ones and 4 new ones are on the road operating. 3 more are on order for Fargo. I'm looking at an April delivery for those. And 2 are on order for Moorhead, looking at, again, an April delivery for those also. So looking really good on the paratransit side for smaller buses, but still need to stay on top of keeping orders going so we don't get behind again. So in 2024, Fargo has 2 more replacements funded, and Moorhead has 1 funded for 2023. So like I said, we'll keep those replacements going. And then also one note, Moorhead does have an expansion bus funded for 2024. And that would possibly be an on-demand vehicle for some possible micro-transit service in Moorhead, possibly around the industrial park area, or covering some other routes maybe that are a little lower performing. Next slide, please. So this is a vehicle that I looked at an expo that Lori and I were actually at here a couple weeks ago. With increased costs in our operating budget, looking at ways to reduce that. We have a large increase in driver wages, and So looking at other ways where we can reduce operating costs to try and make up that difference. This is a low floor paratransit bus that is built on a Ram ProMaster chassis. So the low floor design allows for, a single step curb height entrance, which is a lot more safe than our current 3 steps up into the vehicle. As you can see in the picture there, they have a ramp rather than a lift. Personally, I like that. I don't necessarily like lifting people 3 feet in the air on a lift on a wheelchair. I think it's a lot more safe on a ramp to wheel them in than raising them up on a lift. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of the inside of the vehicle. As you can see, the floor on where the wheelchairs go is completely flat. They can achieve this because this is actually a front-wheel drive chassis platform. A lot of our vehicles that we have now, or all of our vehicles we have now, are rear-wheel drive vehicles. So there's drivetrain that goes underneath. This does not have that, so they are able to do a completely flat floor where the wheelchairs are, and then 2 smaller steps up where the seats are. We don't currently do have a low floor vehicle, but the floor where the wheelchairs go is slanted because of that drivetrain. So this gives a little bit better operational for the drivers. And then the steps to get up to the seats are less than what our steps are now to get into our high floor paratransit vehicles. Next slide, please. So when they tested this bus at Altoona, every transit bus goes through rigorous testing at Altoona. Altoona allows for 500 hours or they test the bus for 500 hours, and they allow up to 100 hours of downtime, basically mechanical breakdown. This vehicle had 1 hour of downtime. So it speaks highly to their reliability, and that, like I said, operating costs could decrease because of buses having better uptime and not being in the shop. Also, this is because it's a front-wheel drive vehicle. It does have a smaller V6 engine versus our big V8 engines in our larger buses. So fuel economy is much better, probably about double what we get now with our really large cutaways with V8 engines. And these still are a 5-year, 150,000 mile service life. So we would use them for the same amount of time that we currently use our large cutaways. Next slide. Oh, that's all I have. So as we move forward, this is definitely an option that we're looking at moving to. I think it'd be a good option for us. Like I said, the buses, the initial cost for the buses is very similar, about $5,000 less than what we pay for our large cutaways. But operationally, I think it could help us improve bring down our operational costs and kind of try to balance out the operational costs as we see increases in other areas of our service. So, any questions or comments? I would take those at this time. If not, we can move on.
Any questions? Also, can I ask if you're not speaking to put yourself on mute? Just a friendly reminder. Thank you. We got some feedback there. Thanks for the update. Any questions? Looks like a good option.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good one too, and I think it would work good for a microtransit vehicle as well. So,
Yeah.
Great.
To confirm, that is an option. It's not on order.
Correct. We currently don't have any of these on order. The 2 vehicles that Fargo has funded for paratransit fleet replacement for 2024, I am planning to order 2 of these. And then I know Moorhead, like I said, had their expansion vehicle for 2024 microtransit, and then we still have a 2023 vehicle that we need to order for the Moorhead side. So these are definitely an option that we could order soon for orders coming up. So looking to possibly have some of these in service, within the next year or so. Thanks, Chelsea.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. Cole, you're on.
Cole,
I'm
you're
getting all
talking,
kinds of
that's not
chirps in my.
working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a chipmunk on.
Well, if Cole can't speak on this issue, Jordan, maybe you want to take this. You work.
Certainly can.
him
Yep,
on
that's
it.
no problem. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so the state of North Dakota issued an RFP for paratransit / fixed route scheduling software earlier this year. So we were an agency that assisted the state with writing this RFP and kind of coming up with a specification for the RFP. Mainly because we were looking at replacing ours, so we wanted to make sure that what we wanted was in that RFP, so that when we went to purchase off of it, we're getting a product that we feel would work for us. So we went through the whole process. There was about 15 different vendors that submitted proposals, went through the selection process, and we have narrowed it down to two different companies, one for our fixed route software and one for our paratransit software. Fixed route is the company's GMV Synchro. The software, what we felt was a good fit for us, and it fit within our budget, which was very important. There were some other softwares that were very nice, but also very, very expensive. And then for VIA, or for paratransit, we chose VIA. Had some really nice options in their software, and again was well within our budget that we had set forth for this project. So we did a notice of intent to award on 8/11, and then the contract negotiations with the vendors were started after that. Like I said, multiple vendors were awarded, so based on those multiple vendors, we selected who we felt was best fit our needs, and then also best fit within our budget. So next slide. Like I said, we chose VIA and then GMV Synchromatics. So here we have what our costs would be for both of these contracts. As you can see there, GMV's proposal was about $888,000. That is the initial setup of the hardware, getting the servers all set up, getting all the licenses and all that kind of stuff. And then we have our recurring annual fees there. Year one, the recurring fee is $86,400, so the initial first year cost is about $975,000. Then after that, they're $86,400 per year for GMV, and then like I said, Passio was the other one that we had looked at. The cost was a little bit higher. However, their yearly cost is what drove their costs up, and we did not feel like that was. We didn't want to continually pay those high yearly costs. We'd rather pay the higher upfront costs. One of the main reasons for that is the initial cost is reimbursable at 80%, where the ongoing annual fees are only reimbursable at 50%. So even though the cost is much different, our reimbursement is much higher if the initial cost is higher than the ongoing fees. Just that, and the ongoing fees you're tied to forever. So we didn't feel like the higher ongoing fees are what we wanted to go with on that one. And then paratransit scheduling software, we had the three companies that we looked at or that we chose to get official proposals from. As you can see there, there's VIA, Ecolane, and TripMaster. VIA was by far the cheapest option there for total year one, and then the ongoing fees were very similar to Ecolane. However, the initial fee was so much lower that the total cost for the 5 years was the lowest of all the ones, those three vendors there. Next slide.
Nope.
That's all we had for that. So all in all, we felt like the RFP went really well. I feel like we got really good options for vendors, and we will definitely be an upgrade to our dispatching software, both on the fixed route side and the paratransit side. And I think we'll see some operational benefits to implementing new softwares. So, any questions on that? Or,
if you would explain what these softwares do a little bit, Jordan, so they know we currently have software that's quite old.
Yes, we do. So we currently have Route Match is the name of the software that we operate both our fixed route and paratransit with, and that software was first implemented in 2009. So it is quite old. So our fixed route software, it allows for live tracking of our buses to riders. It allows for us to, schedule routes, have timetables, and then in the bus it has a driver unit where the driver can see where they're at on route and if they're ahead of schedule or behind schedule. So that's our computer-aided dispatching software, or CAD-AVL. It does automatic vehicle location, automatic vehicle announcements on the bus. So it's a quite robust system. And then the paratransit software is used to schedule rides. So customers will call in and schedule a ride to the grocery store or doctor's appointment or something. And then, that software will look and see how many buses we have available and look to see who's available for that ride and how it fits into the schedule and put all that scheduling together for us. And then dispatch out those rides to, again, tablets in the bus telling the driver where their next pickup and drop off and everything else. So.
And some of those features on paratransit we don't have now involve people being able to make their own appointments, right?
Yes. So the new software would allow for a web portal and then also a mobile-based app that people can book their own rides, cancel their own rides, and stuff like that. And those are features that we currently do not have. So again, that would be looking hopefully improve our operations that way through some other features.
Great. Any other questions on software? Sounds like good choices. All right, we'll get an update on ridership. Who's going to take that?
If I'll do a quick mic check here. Is this sounding better?
Yes.
Sounds good, bud.
Perfect.
Okay. So going into some of the ridership information that we have here, we have a bit of a mixed bag in terms of increases and decreases in ridership. A good majority of that is due to service cuts that we've unfortunately had to do over the last couple of years due to driver shortages. Majority of those service cuts or frequency cuts are on our Fargo routes. As you can see here, routes 11, 14, and 15 all have experienced service cuts throughout that time, which can definitely impact the decrease in ridership that you see here. Looking at Route 13, we have seen an increase of approximately 9%. I'll go into that a little bit later as to why that's happening. Route 16 has seen a slight decrease of 4.81%. We do believe that this is because back in 2022, there was major road construction on 13th Avenue South. With that, a lot of people use Route 15 to take that street to get to either West Acres or Walmart. Route 16 gets those passengers to West Acres without traveling on 13th Avenue South. So it was just a more consistent option for riders. So most likely a lot of those riders that were utilizing Route 16 last year have went back to Route 15 this year because of the lack of construction. Some of the other routes that we have, Route 17, 18, 20, and 24, all have not been impacted by driver shortages. We have kept that frequency stable. And as you can see with that, we've seen substantial increases, especially on routes 18 and 24 compared to last year. We have been working on a couple of these routes to make them more consistent. Last meeting, we'd gone over how we were eliminating approximately 3 to 4 minutes off of Route 18 to be able to make sure that the route was able to stay within its hour-and-a-half time frame and be able to make it back to the GTC to make transfers And we firmly believe that by making these routes more consistent and more reliable for customers, that we see an increase in ridership because of that. Looking at Link FM ridership, this is a little bit, I guess, out of date. The last Link FM event that we had was the street fair, I believe. So we saw a major increase in that compared to the previous year, 2022, just people returning back to local events, that sort of thing. We will be having another event actually this weekend for Pangea, if anybody wants to utilize Link FM to get over there. As for the Industrial Park on-demand service and the NDSU on-demand service in the line below, we did switch over to a different app earlier this year from TapRide to Transloc. And with that, we've seen a slight decrease in ridership because of that. I think that over the next year, and just kind of as you give it time, more people will adjust to it, more people will move over to the new app, and we'll see that consistency return. Looking at our paratransit service, we did see a substantial increase around 2020 and the following years from there in paratransit demand. That has more or less settled. We're still seeing a slight increase of about 3.31%, but overall, ride amounts are staying consistent. We are getting to the time of year where rides are increasing as weather conditions get worse. More people will utilize the service if they're not able to get around town in their different mobility devices. So we probably will see maybe a little bit more of an increase before the year's over. Then looking at the row on the bottom, our NDSU routes. Route 31 has seen a pretty significant increase of about 12.26%. Route 32 is a decrease of 8.11%. 33 an increase of 22.43%. And then the one that really stands out here is Route 34 of an increase of 73.94%. I think that may have to do with a combination of just different student housing options. I know there have been more housing options up around the Niskanen area, which is where Route 34 serves. This year we put Niskanen as one of our time points on our timetables, so that way students are able to know exactly when that route's going to be there. And with that, we saw a pretty substantial increase. Besides that, we're just seeing students returning to classes, so overall college ridership is up too. As for Route 36, that has to do with Route 13. This fall semester, we elected to temporarily suspend Route 36 due to driver shortages. That route covers essentially the same route that Route 13 does. Route 13 goes up north into North Fargo by up on North Broadway over to the U32 apartments and back down. So that way we're still able to service more of the city while still offering service to NDSU students and students who live up in those U32 apartments. So that's why you see a pretty drastic decrease for 36. And as I spoke to before with on-demand, we're hopefully going to see ridership increase, especially as weather gets worse out there. On-demand, especially at NDSU, does tend to increase as college students don't really want to drive their cars around town and rather have our on-demand vehicle pick them up and drop them off within campus. Next slide, please.
And this is Moorhead. So ridership's picking up in Moorhead. The only decrease you see is on Route 2. And basically Route 2, we had a loss of frequency because of our driver shortage. We have reduced the hours of service in the afternoons during the academic year slightly, and that's reflected here in that decrease. Otherwise, ridership is up. In Moorhead for the year, it's up 8.51% over 2022, and we're getting closer to recovering what we had pre-COVID. Not there yet. We're still under, but I think people are returning to the transit system, feeling more comfortable with it, and we're seeing some good increases for that.
And that's true for the Fargo side as well. I think that the lower increase of ridership comparatively between years is due to more substantial frequency cuts on the Fargo side, but it is still nice to see that ridership is slowly but surely returning to us. Next slide, please. One thing that I want to touch on before I get into some of these numbers, the MSUM calculation isn't correct. It should be only a 3.39% decrease, so not too drastic, or not as drastic there. But overall, outside of the slight decrease from MSUM and the approximately 40 student decrease of NDSCS, we are seeing pretty substantial college increases. Again, I think this is just mainly to students returning to on-campus, being able to have campus activities, that sort of thing, just being able to travel out in the community more. So it's nice to see a bit of a return there. Next slide, please.
Yeah, especially M-State. Senior ride. So the Moorhead and Dilworth senior ride service is seeing a 6.88% increase over last year for the same period of time. And we have recovered, post-COVID recovery is at 83% on senior ride. So our senior citizens 60 and older who are ambulatory and not using the paratransit system for door-to-door service is on its recovery and doing well.
And then kind of taking a look at our overall ridership comparison, as Lori had mentioned, we're definitely not back to pre-COVID levels, but one thing that is pretty reassuring here is you look at 2023's numbers in the last couple of months in September, October. Previously, back before COVID hit us, we could see that there was a pretty substantial increase as we got into the winter months. And then looking at 2022 and 2021, we didn't really have that increase, but in 2023, we seem to be going up at a pretty steady rate. So I think that's good to see that riders are utilizing us for winter weather, being able to take the bus and avoid that traffic hassle. And I think with that, that should be everything for ridership. If there's any comments or questions, I'd be happy to talk about it or answer it now.
All right. Any questions? Okay. Looks like good news overall.
Yeah.
Cole, would you send me that data for on that slide that you just sent?
Yep, absolutely.
The raw data,
Great.
please.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other items for discussion? That's everything?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for your attention today, and I hope you all have a great day. I'll adjourn the meeting.